The National Security Act, brought into law in 1980, allows the government, centre or state, to detain an individual for a year without bringing in charges. The person detained doesn't even have to be told why for the first 10 days. Fundamental rights like right to a lawyer are limited. This act was brought in to preserve national security, as the name suggests, but time and again gets slapped on in cases which may not be justified. The latest case seems to be that of a YouTuber called Manish Kashyap, who has been arrested under the National Security Act for spreading fake videos that claimed migrant laborers were being targeted in Tamil Nadu. Kashyap moved the Supreme Court today, appealing against the application of the NSA. The court rejected this appeal, but has allowed him to now approach a lower court. Meanwhile, his plea to club the 19 FIRs against him and transfer cases to Bihar has also been rejected. The case of Manish Kashyap as an example of whether NSA is excessive in some cases or not is an important one. No doubt, putting out fake videos claiming attacks on migrant laborers when it's not happening is illegal. It can create panic and mischief and law and order problems. These videos and many more went viral in Tamil Nadu in March this year. This is when Kashyap was charged under the National Security Act. He then went into hiding and was eventually arrested by the Bihar police. But the question today is the National Security Act the right law to apply here? Are we becoming too quick to slap a draconian act for crimes that have no dearth of other laws to tackle them? So what is so worrisome about this particular law? It's honestly the vague nature of its wording and the huge discretionary powers of the state to apply it as and when they feel like. Anyone considered a threat to India's security can be detained. The government does not even have to bring about charges for a year. You can be held for 10 days without a reason. Unlike other laws, the accused doesn't have to be produced in court in 24 hours. Legal advice is restricted. So what is the criteria to apply this law? First, if the accused is seen to be acting against India's security or disturbing public order, anyone who disrupts supplies or services essential to society can be charged, or someone acting against India's relations with other countries. The concern is the vague terms of these crimes that leaves too much to someone's whims and fancies. Since 2017 to 2022, an average of more than 500 people have been detained under the National Security Act. More than half of them are released each year. It begs the question on whether there is a judicious use of a law that leaves very little scope of redressal to the average citizen, and whether such a powerful law should be used without scrutiny. To speak on these issues today, I'm joined by Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, K.V. Dhananjay, Supreme Court Advocate, Salim Dharanidhar of DMK, he's a spokesperson, and S.S. Sriram, political analyst. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us on the show. Sanjay Hegde, I'm going to start with you and with a disclosure which I'm sure that you will elaborate on, that you are representing the government of Tamil Nadu in this case. I was interested in speaking with you, Sanjay, because usually I would assume you would be arguing against the use of National Security Act for the crimes of putting out videos which could be misleading on YouTube.
Well, to clarify, I represented the government of Tamil Nadu on one occasion in this matter. Senior advocates here wherever a brief requires them to appear. So we do a job in court. Our loyalty is to the brief. We may have our views on various things. Now, as far as the National Security Act is concerned, it's a species of which there are many other replicas also. This is part of the preventive detention laws. Under preventive detention, you need not be guilty of having done anything. there is no requirement to prove you guilty beyond reasonable doubt. All that is shown is that you have a propensity to do something, and to prevent further acts happening, then you are detained by an order of the government. That order is then reviewed by the advisory board. If the advisory board says no, this is wrongly been imposed, then you are set free. If the advisory board says yes, we find nothing wrong with this particular detention, then of course, subject to what the constitutional court's order, you can be detained till a maximum of 12 months. You have the National Security Act. You have in Jammu and Kashmir, you have the Public Safety Act. You have the Gundas Act and the Gangsters Acts in various states. So all these are, there are various laws of preventive detention. They all follow the same pattern, that any such detention, even if a government orders it, has to be cleared by the advisory board. The advisory board consists of judicial members. And thereafter, if the advisory board says no, then it can't go. Then the person is released immediately. If the advisory board says yes, the detention can continue up to a period of 12 months, but the government can release you earlier also. Now, in this particular case, it's not just a video. There was an entire campaign. There was a campaign which actually disrupted a peaceful state, which made migrant laborers run away from that state, which had economic consequences. Now, one of this video was particularly made viral, and this video was entirely staged. So one of the consequences of this detention is that all that virality has died down, peace has returned. Is it right? Is it wrong? You can have various views. But as far as Mr. Kashyap is concerned, he has a right to go to the advisory board. And if the detention is confirmed there, he can challenge it further.
Okay. His detention was important. Was it crucial under the National Security Act? Is the realm of the question today. It is not that a state should not crack down on mischief makers, people trying to disturb the law and order, spreading fake videos, spreading fake news. And of course, then in many cases, what is fake, what is not fake becomes a question. The question is the application of the National Security Act. I want to bring in Mr. Dhananjay for your view on this.
One more sentence. Just one more sentence.
Okay.
You see, it's not all fake videos have the same consequences. But if a fake video were to have violent consequences, supposing there is some cow slaughter, something of that kind, which is faked, then a detention, depending on the facts of the case, may or may not be justified. That has to be examined by the advisory board and not by the Supreme Court.
How much time does it take for the advisory board to get into the act, KV Dhananjay? If it's as simple as this, as Mr. Hegde is today explaining, why all the hue and cry over the National Security Act?
There should be a hue and cry over the National Security Act because the definition of security is so malleable. Any and every government will simply do whatever it takes to, charge a person under NSA and say that, well, it's their perception. And you really can't have any meaningful comparison between crime under the NSA and some other law. Now, whatever the allegation is in this case can, in fact, be very effectively tried under the Indian Penal Code. Now, the document forging material, in fact, itself can carry punishment in excess of 10 years, and it can be held without bail. All of that can, of course, be done here. And the problem with the NSA is that it does not afford to the detainee a meaningful right of representation, or for that matter, being able to show that the state is acting in excess of its, legitimate authority. So for that reason, I think we have to frown on this. And at the end of the day, India is not the only country of the world. We should always be able to compare our laws and then find them to be so out of in touch with modern day times, because you can see what happened to the Capitol riots in the US, 2020. The federal government charged nearly 1,000 persons, of whom 500 pleaded guilty, and 445 stand convicted, some of them for a period as high as 10 years. They know how to run the criminal justice system, and we simply do not. And it's very unfortunate that our judges, during the vacation go over to these countries, but they don't seem to come back with much of a learning at all, because how do you support and justify a law like NSA in this day and age? What is the problem with the Indian Penal Code? And why do we have law over another and make it so difficult for people to obtain bail? Capital riots in the US, you know how serious it was for the US government, but yet they're trying under the ordinary law. And we keep inventing one after the other. We come out with the UAPA, we make it so very difficult for people to. Delhi riots, people are still rioting in jail. Charge sheets have not been filed in a large number of cases. And yet we continue to, wax eloquently about the virtues of NSA. Failed countries will be applying this. It was a 1980 legislation. It should have been buried long ago. The fact that in this day and age, we are invoking it, and Tamil Nadu government can never meaningfully argue that if not for NSA, that this person could not have been incarcerated. He can be incarcerated under the Indian Penal Code. What is to make of all the bail law then? We have built up volumes and volumes of bail law. What is to become of all that? So Tamil Nadu's government, I think the argument of the Tamil Nadu government just doesn't make any sense at all. And if it is their intention that we will scare enough people so that we will give a decent burial to this right now, then I don't think they are even acting in the best interest of the people of Tamil Nadu, because people of Tamil Nadu want someone to be convicted here. And there won't be a conviction under NSA. All that you will do under NSA is to harass people, keep them behind bars, and that's it. If not for this individual, someone else will come tomorrow, because they know very well that, a few months in jail, no big deal. But you have to convict people, and this is not how you go about convicting people. And for that reason, the Tamil Nadu government does not even act in the best interest of the people of Tamil Nadu. And you can't prevent a reputation of
Mr. Salim to respond to this. I want Mr. Salim to respond to this. The question
Tamanna,
once again.
Just 1 second.
Yes, yeah. So
Tamanna, listen, if it is getting into the particulars of the case, then I may not be able to continue this study. I had come here on a specific one.
I will not come to you on the particulars of this case, Mr. Hegde, but that's why I'm going to Mr. Salim.
I may not be able to participate further if we are getting into this specific case in Tamil Nadu. Okay. So I argue my case only in court, not on television channels. Sorry.
No, agreed. I understand. I understand your situation, but this is the example that we are using to understand the application of the NSA. And since Mr. Dhananjay has made a specific comment on the government of Tamil Nadu's application of NSA, I think I must go to Mr. Salim for your response. Was there no other law?
See, basically, this act could be used for two reasons. One, if it disturbs maintenance of public order, and second, if it's prejudicial to the security of India. And this gentleman is not a YouTuber, as you say. He's been having political links. He has contested elections in Bihar before. He's been part of the Hindu Putra Sangatam. And this is not the first time he has done this. He's a repeat offender. This was affirmed and underlined by the Supreme Court verdict. He was involved in the anti-Muslim violence. Dozens of cases have been filed against him in the Patna police, by the Patna police rather. He has attacked the people protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act. He played a pivotal role in creating violence earlier in Bihar by showcasing or propagating Sushant Singh Rajput's suicide case through another fake news, created whatever. And again in Tamil Nadu, what did he do? He had 3 to 4 videos of incidents that happened in Patna, in UP, as if it has happened in Tamil Nadu. A man was brutally killed in somewhere in Uttar Pradesh, and was shown as if the migrant worker in Tamil Nadu was killed. So there are about 36 lakh migrant workers in Tamil Nadu. What if chaos has prevailed? What if the administration was not proactive? It would have led to deaths of thousands of people. Let's say if the migrants got paranoid and believed the news and they started attacking the locals, and the locals would have in turn started attacking them.
But Mr. Salim, the argument here is, Mr. Salim, the argument here is not that Mr. Kashyap is a great guy and why did you arrest him? That's not the argument. I'm not pitching for him and saying what he did was right. This is not what we're saying at all. The question is about the application of the National Security Act for this. If he is a mischief maker, a habitual offender, you have a right as a government to prosecute him if you think that he is going to create and disturb law and order. Why the National Security Act? Is this a threat to national security?
Yes, what does the Act say? The Act clearly says a person can be arrested under this law if it disrupts the maintenance of public order. And this gentleman had definitely tried to disrupt the maintenance of public order more than if it had not handled well, thousands of people could have been attacked or maybe lost their lives also. And this is not funny. And you have to go and question the BJP government where innocent journalists have been put on jail. For example, UAPA was put on Siddiq Kappan. He was in jail for more than a year. Why? Because he's going to cover a rape incident in Hathras, in UP. And
Yes.
last week and
Absolutely. All governments have to be questioned. There is no doubt about that. All governments have to be questioned because these laws are being slapped on indiscriminately. But
there are two different
all
things.
governments includes yours.
No, see, the two different things. You are using BJP government, particularly in states like UP, even as recently in Delhi. I mean the union government, Delhi, have been using NSA to threaten honest journalists to stifle them speaking truth, right? To stop truth coming out. That is wrong. But here a man has clearly disrupted maintenance of public order. And the act clearly says that it can be...
SS Shriram.
On him. So what is the question here?
Okay, SS Shriram, this is an apt case. This is an apt case for NSA. The Supreme Court,
one second.
Yeah.
I will add on 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Even Supreme Court today, in its verdict, underlined that Tamil Nadu is a peaceful state, and we are dismissing this petition because he is trying to disrupt peace and disrupt social harmony in a peaceful state.
But the Supreme Court said you can go to another judicial forum like the High Court. So the Supreme Court did not say either way that this is not a case fit or this is a case fit for NSA. They've said you can go to a lower court. So there is a difference over there. Yes, SS Shriram, the point being, if this is a habitual offender, 1 minute, some of the points we make, this is a habitual offender. It's not some innocuous YouTuber. There is a political sort of persona behind this individual. There was a malicious attempt to create mayhem and fake reportage, which could have caused chaos in the state. He had to be stopped and NSA was the only way. What is your response?
Yeah, good evening. See, obviously, we definitely condemn anyone who does this kind of fake videos and bring a disrupt peace, no matter who it is, where it is, and what they do. But as far as this is concerned, this definitely has got a political angle to it. Now, when you talk about lives of people that can be at stake, so will be the honor of people, and how are North Indian people are spoken here by the ruling government people here. Pani Puri walas, people who know Hindi can only come to Tamil Nadu to sell pani puris. People who know Hindi are only coming as migrant laborers, are only coming to do menial job. Now, how justified are these for people who come and sit and talk about justice, people who come and sit and talk about all these heroic words about disruption of life and all that stuff? They should also think on these lines, that honor and self-respect, which this government or which this party always rhetorics about self-respect, talks about our own North Indian people as mean laborers. Now, I don't justify what has been done by this gentleman, but as far as his NSA is concerned, it's a pure political agenda which they want to take on this person, and there is nothing more to it.
But Mr. Shriram, can I ask you a question? Do you feel the same when NSA is applied wrongfully by Uttar Pradesh? 1 minute. Do you feel the same way when NSA is applied wrongfully by Uttar Pradesh or by any other state run by the BJP? Do you feel the same way?
Any state which is unreasonable to bring in NSA unless and until it's justified. I'll also ask you one more thing. Mr. Swamy has written to the Election Commission. We have one party spokesperson of the current party here, Mr. Dharadin's colleague, had said genocide on Brahmins should have been done on a tweet replying.
No, don't, Mr. Shriram, don't go into other random things. We're talking about a very specific case right now. We're talking about a very specific question. We're talking about the application of the National Security Act.
You asked me, is it being fairly applied to everybody? I am saying it is being selective. That is my point. Now, if you talk about human lives, values, it should be for everyone. It cannot be someone else and you look at your own people in a different way, and you look at a magnifying glass, had it been, and specifically here to say, because the gentleman keeps saying it's BJP, had it been a BJP person. You have to be neutral, no matter whichever party, no matter whichever state it is. The person concerned to bring him under NSA should have 300% justification in having to bring him into that law, is my humble submission.
So, okay, let me come to you, Mr. Hegde, and once again, I appreciate and I understand your discomfort with talking about this particular case, which is why I will not ask you about this particular case. One minute. I want to understand on the broad issue of National Security Act and its application. Is there enough check and balance in your view in the system? Yes, there is an advisory board. How much time does it take to get to that advisory board? And is there a concern that the criteria laid down are vague enough to actually apply to anyone and anything based on the whims and fancies of whoever is in charge?
See, unfortunately, the Constitution itself provides for laws of preventive detention. So, right from the beginning of the Constitution, we have all these laws of preventive detention, which all had the same thing, that the government can detain you only subject to safeguards. Safeguards are that you will be given immediately the grounds of your detention. Thereafter, you can make a representation. The advisory boards can uphold that representation and release you, or it can confirm the detention. So we've had Kofiposa, we had Visa, we had several acts like that. And throughout, there have always been cases which have been a misuse of the act. But there are certain cases which are justifiable. Now, the current system allows for an advisory board, and if the advisory board goes wrong, then you take it up to the high courts. And high courts set aside other matters because it concerns the liberty of the citizen, and they try to finish off hearing the validity of the detention within the period of detention itself. So, if preventive detention is constitutional, subject to all these safeguards which they've bought in, I can't think of a better way. Unless you want to say that you can preventively detain only people who are already accused of X, Y, or Z, only for crimes of murder, this, that, and the other, then that is rewriting the legislation.
Okay, so then that's the question. Do we need to re-look at the scope of the legislation? Do we need a better sort of check and balance on this? I'm going to go back to Advocate Dhananjay for his views. Right now, the law exists. In some cases, it is very much required. If you're going to, for example, Amritpal Singh was detained under NSA, many would argue that that's absolutely fine because that was a complete challenge to the Indian state in every way. But who gets to finally decide? Or do we need to now let it go to the courts?
Well, we can always learn from other contemporaries. And of course, preventive detention is an original part of the Constitution. Nobody says the Constitution of India is a perfect document. And the Constitution of India itself does not say or ask the courts to pretend that the Constitution of India is a perfect document. If preventive detention should be an original feature of the Constitution, keep it there. Why have an additional law then? At the end of the day, the NSA is an additional and something over and above the Constitution. So why have these laws? Number one. Number two, there were these allegations against this YouTuber. And I too was so much concerned about all the migrant riots or the possibility of migrant riots in Tamil Nadu. The police will have no motivation now to go after the truth behind this. There was apparently a conspiracy here. And who was the one responsible for that? You see, the police now, what's the motivation for them? They already have put someone under the NSA. They don't have to investigate it thoroughly because there's no need to secure any conviction. And that is where we fail the future. That is where we, in fact, go deeper and deeper into this mess. It's just not helping us, and we have to understand it. And the sooner the courts recognize that these laws just don't fit the times, the better. And why? I think only a few months ago, you had the Supreme Court uphold, draconian provisions of the PMLA, and that's very surprising. So this is just not going to help us, and it's time that we recognize that. And when our judges go to the Western European countries or the North American countries, it's important for them to bring back the lessons that we are not doing a good job of interpreting these laws. These laws have to be thrown out, and that's a task of the courts. The parliament does what it does, and it's important for the courts to tell the parliament, or for that matter, the government, that look, you are not the British government of the 15th or the 16th century who could claim some divine privilege to govern so that they could do whatever it takes. You're not that. You're a government that's elected every 5 years. So which means you have to govern according to certain standards. Now, if the standards are too much for you, just resign and go home. Someone else will take your mantle. And it's important for our courts to say so to the governments, which in fact come out with even more draconian laws.
Will they be then
because our
stepping
courts
over
are
the
not
line?
pushing back.
These are elected governments. These are elected governments. So they have a responsibility at the end of the day. Mr.
Yes.
Salim's party has a responsibility to maintain law and order in Tamil Nadu. And while we are while we are talking about the National Security Act in a broader sort of fashion, and it's been misused across the board, the fact is that the Tamil Nadu government was very quick to nip this in the bud, and they did not allow it to spread. That did happen, and that was important at that point, that this entire scenario was controlled. But the question over here, Mr. Salim, and which was brought up in court also in this particular case, was Mr. Kashyap was not the only one who said this. A lot of, at least that's what his lawyers claim in court, a lot of his material in his video was taken from here and there. So then, if you want to pursue this to the end, you will have to go after whoever mentioned this and wherever they mentioned it. Not just the first person who had a viral video.
Yes, before going there, I have to tell you, I have to also report the previous person who spoke, Mr. Shriram, who I think is a quasi BJP spokesperson. So what I have to tell is what he spoke into with the topic, he was trying to only ridicule the government and Tamil Nadu's pride. He has to understand, Tamil Nadu's Yadum Murai Yavarum Kelir. Everyone is welcome here. For thousands of years, people from different walks, different parts of the world, or even different parts of India have come and worked here peacefully. And there is peace here. So that doesn't mean that what he says is like, oh, ministers have gone and said a lot of things. It's all false. It's all quoted out of context. We want everyone to come here. That is why Tamil Nadu has the highest net inflow of migrants. If you compare with any Indian state, we have about a million of people coming into Tamil Nadu each year net, right? That's because of the peace prevailing here, and we welcome everyone. People belonging to all different communities live in Tamil Nadu, in every city and town, doing business and flourishing business as well, or working in different.
Again, it's not really to the point we're talking about, Mr.
Yeah,
Salim.
I'm coming there because I have to refute and put things in order. Right? See, why this person, I also told earlier, because you have to look at the precedent. This is not the first time. He's been involved in such crimes for more than 2 dozen times. And when the police investigated it, he was the trigger point. He was the one who first came up with the videos. And then through some mysterious sources, a lot of other videos started coming in, and he played a pivotal role in promoting all those, which was unfortunately carried by certain media houses without verifying. That is why National Security Act has been imposed on this gentleman, because his sole aim was to disrupt the social order, right? He has clearly done it with the aim of disrupting social order. Let's say your channel, Times Now, Mirrors Now, for example, will see some video there without verifying, you may put. But your motivation is not to create violence or disrupt social peace. But person who has actually shared that video and trying to propagate it in every corner had an agenda, that is to disrupt social peace.
Agenda and motive. Okay, Mr. Shriram, the differentiating factor as per Mr. Salim is agenda and motive. That you haven't inadvertently put out some wrong information. You are doing it on purpose to disturb peace. How would an elected government react?
No one says what he did was right. No one justified what the gentleman did was right. But you have a law, and you, as per the law, as per a senior, Supreme Court advocate who had advocated, you don't have to go with an NSA on this. Please go by the normal, your penal codes of what we have as per law, and you try the gentleman and you fix him and definitely convict him and whatever he has, for whatever wrong he did. But just to harass people, just because he had an, he had what should I say? He has probably has a connection to BJP. It is more trying to prove a point than trying to actually get justice or try to get proper logical conclusion. So that is the only reason more I could see than actually trying to fix the gentleman for the wrong he did so that others don't
does
repeat what the
everything have
gentleman
to
did.
be seen from a political prism?
How? Can I just add on? He was
Yes.
trying to disturb the social peace, and if he had succeeded, more than 1,000 people would have died, and then industries were moved out of Tamil Nadu. It would have been an economic disaster for the whole country because only the states will go, the country can prosper.
During COVID times, how much of fake videos have been floating in the country during COVID times, saying bodies are found here, bodies were found there. In Ganga, there were bodies found. In Yamuna, there were bodies found. We had so many such fake videos during COVID time. So what happened to all of them? We have had everywhere. Every opposition party, ruling state did something or the other to bring in disrupt to the COVID time or to the action taken by the Supreme Court.
No, listen, 1 minute, 1 minute. The fact is 1 minute. I'm going to 1 minute. The menace of fake videos and misinformation is very, very real. Across party lines, across political lines, in every sphere of our lives. There are rules and laws for that. In fact, the new IT Act hopes to address it, and then there are concerns that the government will go overboard. Mr. Dhananjay, the question is that is NSA apt for fake information online? It's a 1980s law. The phenomenon of fake information online is, of course, relatively recent. Is the NSA an apt law for that?
Not really. In the sense, there could be certain other acts that will constitute a crime under the NSA. And no doubt, when the NSA was framed, we did not have the concept of internet as we understand. It was in some DARPA in rudimentary form then. But the issue is not so much about whether NSA is absolutely essential, because NSA came only in 1980. What did we do between 1950 and 1980? Number one. Number two, this person has been incarcerated. If this person being arrested is what put an end to all of this or substantially put an end to so much of the trouble, he could have been arrested under the IPC itself. Now, so therefore, it is difficult really to understand why this NSA was invoked in this case. And as I was saying a few minutes earlier, there is no motivation at this point of time to the Tamil Nadu police to go deep into this. It's important to fix this. It's important to get this man convicted if he is guilty of what he's been charged or what he's been accused of. It's important also to find out who his conspirators
Mr. Dhananjay, that convictions under NSA are difficult?
Well, what do you convict people of? Because anyway, you're going to detain a person for up to 12 months. So where's the motivation to even try a person? You don't. You simply keep a person here, and most of the time, people are let off after they complete the period of detention. And that is the reason why we are not really sending home a message that we've got the guilty. If you keep a person under the NSA, you simply have not sent a deterrent effect to anybody at all. Death penalty in Saudi Arabia does not deter more than hangings next month. You know that very well. So keeping people behind bars for 12 months is simply not going to deter whatever future mischief that might befall some state or the other. It was important for the police to go after these people. And that can only happen if there is going to be a public trial where what work the police does is put to a trial. There is somebody to confront the police with the quality of their investigation. And that is why public trial is an essential feature of democracy.
In this case. It's not like Mr. Kashyap is today, he's not unrepresented. His lawyers have gone to the Supreme Court.
No, detention, by the way, does not involve a trial. Detention will not involve a trial. He will be detained, and he could be detained for a period of 12 months and let off. So he may never know what really was the material against him, and he may never have the opportunity to rebut it. And that is why we need a public trial. It's not enough for somebody to assume, for that matter, even the government of Tamil Nadu to assume somebody is guilty. It's important for the guilt to be established in a public forum where the accused has an opportunity to find fault, find loopholes in what the police have done. And that is how we reach the truth, because we need the power of truth to convict someone, to put someone behind bars. And laws like this have to be used sparingly, but our experience tells us that these are the laws that the government turn to when they find that they don't have to take on the more arduous task of bringing home the guilt.
It can't be a shortcut. NSA can't be a shortcut to seeking the truth. It has to be used judiciously. Having said that, we need to see what happens in the lower courts with this case. No one's giving a clean chit this evening to Mr. Kashyap, and nor have the courts. So we're going to have to wait and see where that goes. But a judicious and even-handed application of such a stringent law is the need of the hour. Thank you to all of you for joining us on the first leg of the show this evening. We'll take a very short break, but on